Welcome in, Braves Today, bravestoday.com. He is Lindsay Crosby. I'm Ben Taylor. It is all brought to you by Plains Coffee. Go to plainscoffee.com. Promo code Braves, your 10% off. Lindsay, right now, the hot name in my book is Shawn Murphy. And one reason being is because he was out for so long. It took him a while to kind of get his sea legs under him, I guess you could say. And now, for some reason, he is tearing the cover off the ball and almost seems like he needs to be an everyday player. Big picture, I know we don't want him to be an everyday player,
Right.
but small picture is he just really seems to be coming into his own as of late.
Yeah, and I mean, if you kind of look at, he came back for the May 27th game against Washington, right? And the first 11 games he played, he batted like 119.
Yeah.
Since then, so since mid-June, he's batting 300 with a 906 OPS. I feel like a lot of people's opinions of Shawn Murphy are kind of clouded by the second half he had last year. He was an all-star in the first half. He played almost every day, when Travis d'Arnaud was out for a month with a concussion. And in the summer, he admitted the heat bothered him. Heat got to him a bit. He was playing through a minor hamstring strain that happened later in the year. You remember we had like a span of a week where Chadwick Trump was also up and we just had no infield backup on the roster. And it was because Murphy couldn't play for like a week. And they were waiting to IL him. And then he ended up not needing it. But, I mean, the dude is raking right now. Again, 373 on base, 300 batting average, 906 OPS. He's got 4 homers. Some of those have been in pretty clutch times. And I agree he needs to play more for some reason. And Atlanta's been really cognizant of the rest that guys need, right? The Phillies series.
Yeah.
He played one of those 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
And the Arizona series, obviously, as of time of recording, we've played 3 of those games. He started 2. He took a pinch hit appearance in the third one. But in my mind, you get into those series like Philly, he needs to be starting 2 out of the 3 games for defensive reasons and for offensive reasons. But he is hot right now. Obviously, Austin Riley's still hot. Jared Kelenick's still hot. Marcell Ozuna's getting hot again. It gives you this offense is starting to play back up to its potential of where it can when all of these guys are clicking, and we're getting closer and closer to that.
Well, and then the second half of the season, I mean, number one, if the momentum's able to carry over, which let's all hope the All-Star jinx doesn't hit Ozuna, Sale, and Lopez.
The home run derby jinx.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. And that is a thing. I'm sorry, it is. I know everybody says, no, there's not. Yes, it is. Even if it doesn't happen to the individual, look at Pete Alonso when he's won the home run derby. Their team still sucks in the second half. So it still affects everybody, whether you want it to or not, as far as the Mets are concerned. But
quick rant on that. And Mets fans, I hope you're here for this. Pete Alonso should not be an all-star this year.
No.
Christian Walker is better than Pete Alonso in like every single criteria. Offense, defense, whatever. Christian Walker should be an all-star. Pete Alonso should not. Francisco Lindor should have been an all-star over Pete Alonso when you're going to take a Met. And it honestly feels like the only reason Alonso's an all-star is so he could participate in the home run derby. And I would be fine if you made a rule like the Masters. You know what? You won the home run derby, great. If you want to be in the home run derby in the future, even if you're not an all-star, we'll let you in. Because it really doesn't feel like Pete Alonso should be an all-star. And it honestly feels like he only got the nod so that he could be in the home run derby. And that just shouldn't be the case. He's won 2 home run derbies. Just give him an all-time. If you want to be in, you're in. Just tell us you want to be in and we'll put you in. Because he takes that more seriously than the playoffs. I mean, that's his World Series right there.
It is. He gets $1 million. I mean, at one point in time, didn't he make more at a home run derby as he did like what at the first part of his salary or whatever?
I believe the first time he won the home run derby, that was more money than he had made in the majors that season because he was still on the minimum salary contract. Yeah.
And this is my rant.
But also, the Mets aren't going to play in the World Series anytime soon, so this is his World Series.
And I will say this about the home run derby, and I've said this about the NBA dunk contest as well. I think the players should get to choose because they see it every day. You know, there's the rumor that everybody always said Ichiro Suzuki should have been in the home run derby because when he would take batting practice, he was just bouncing them off the facade up at the top of the stadium. And they were like, we need to see this in the home run derby. But he never qualified because he was a base hit guy whenever he was in the games, and so they never put him in the home run derby. So that's my rant on it. Let the players decide, just like players should decide who enters a dunk contest in the NBA. And, I'll say the same. Pro Bowl doesn't count. They don't even – when you talk about the big three, that's turned into tag football. So that's our rant on Home Run Derby. But if this continues to carry on, I do think we'll see more of Shawn Murphy in the second half. However, as I said,
he is well rested.
He is. But big picture, we don't want him saying the heat gets to him again this year and his performance start to die a bit. But I'm with you in Philly series, in series, anybody that's kind of chasing. I know we said the Mets a while ago don't have to worry about him, but anybody that's chasing in the wild card, let's make sure he's out there on the field at some point in time.
Yeah, he needs to start 2 of those 3 games. You shouldn't have a series like the Philly series where he gets 1 of those 3 starts. That should not happen. And they're not just rigid every 3rd game Travis d'Arnaud starts.
Yeah.
But it's typically tended to be in a 3-game series he would get 2. Atlanta's played some 4-game series recently that skews things a bit. Obviously, this series is a 4-game series. But they need to make sure they have this set up correctly so that he can be out there just about every single game every single game against in the big series that matter. Because it feels like he plays better when he plays multiple consecutive games. A lot of other teams use their primary catcher a little bit more. A lot of teams with their younger stars, I think the Brewers with William Contreras, with Wild Bill, JT Realmuto with the Phillies before he got hurt. A lot of them, they'll play 4 straight days and take a day off, play 4 straight days, take a day off. And at one point in time, Contreras hadn't taken a day off in, I want to say, almost a month. He DH'd a lot.
Yeah.
Not going to be a thing in Atlanta. They have a full-time DH. But I still think Murphy needs to play a little bit more consecutively, even if you give Travis back-to-back starts and give Shawn 4 or 5 days straight, give Travis maybe 2 straight starts. I know they don't want to do it like that, but it just feels like he needs to play more.
You guys should go get you some coffee at plainscoffee.com. Promo code BRAVES, 10% off. They're going to roast those beans as soon as you make your order. They're going to ship it to your front door. If you're not a coffee person, go and grab some tea as well. Flavored coffee, cinnamon coffee is on fire. Let me just tell you, absolutely delicious. Go check it out. Plainscoffee.com. Promo code BRAVES, your 10% off. All right, there have been a lot of changes, not necessarily with the Murphys of the world and the Rileys of the world and the Ozunas of the world, but kind of the people coming off of being injured, people getting injured. And let's start with Dylan Lee, as that is a name everybody remembers just because he's one of the few pitchers that's got a sub-3 ERA. I think it's actually right around 2-ish, if I'm not mistaken. And Dylan Lee is now back up, so he seems to be raring to go, and we'll see a little bit more of him.
Dylan Lee, 2 ERA on the dot, right? He's been very good. He's been think of him as kind of as just the long man. And he has shown the capability in previous seasons and sometimes this year to be used in higher leverage situations. He's not going to be your 8th inning guy, right? But he is a guy that is a quality reliever and can take on a traditional reliever role or can be a long man out of the pen. And Atlanta optioned him down earlier in the week.
Yep.
They called up A.J. Smith-Shawver because they needed somebody who could take some innings out of the bullpen if they needed it, simply because they played 11 innings the day before against Arizona. Yeah. And this kind of explains some of the inflexibility Atlanta's had with their bullpen, right? Because you don't have anybody that had options other than Dylan Lee. Grant Holmes doesn't have options. AJ Minter didn't have options. Like, you have all your long-term contract back-end guys like Iglesias and Jimenez and Johnson and Minter, although Minter's on arbitration for his final year. And then everybody else didn't have options but Dylan Lee. So that's why he was sent to Gwinnett. They called Smith-Shawver up for a fresh arm. But Dylan Lee didn't leave Arizona. He stayed in Arizona. When you're optioned down, you actually have 3 days to report to the minor league affiliate. Mm-hmm. You don't have to immediately fly out. And Atlanta knew that when you option a pitcher down, they are gone for 15 days unless they are replacing a player who went on the IL. And it does not have to be a pitcher for a pitcher or a position player for a position player. So it is a way for Atlanta to get a little bit of flexibility on a roster that does not have a lot of available flexibility when it comes to player options. Mm-hmm. Because this is why they waited to put Ramon Laureano on the injured list until they had to. They knew they wanted to get Bryce Elder up for another start to give everybody a kind of a break and a day off in the rotation. And so they waited to see if maybe he would be fine. They thought it was a back issue at first, and they were like, maybe it'll be over the weekend.
Yeah.
It wasn't. But then they waited to IL him so that they had the ability to get Elder up for a spot start, send Elder back down, but have the valuable reliever that they used in Dylan Lee, that they used to make that roster spot for Elder. They had the ability to bring Dylan Lee back before that 15 days. So same thing. If somebody else currently on the roster gets injured and goes on the IL, they could bring Bryce Elder back because he would be replacing a player that went on the IL, even if it's not a pitcher. So as long as you stick with the rules of 13 position players and 13 pitchers, you can swap an injured pitcher for a position player as long as you make another move in there. That's why that's why like they had to call a position player to fill up Ramon Laureano's spot. Yes. In this case, they activated Brian Anderson. But then they were able to get Dylan Lee back using the injury provision. It's Alex Anthopoulos continues to be better than all of us at this, right? He continues to be better at understanding the roster, how you can legally manipulate the roster rules to give yourself some extra flexibility that you normally wouldn't have. Most teams have quite a few relievers in the pen that have options, and they can shuffle those guys around AAA and the majors. And the ones that don't resort to a lot of DFAs. They take a reliever, they'll throw them for 3 innings in a blowout, and then they'll DFA them. And if nobody claims them, they'll stick them back in AAA and then call them up when they need them again, and then they'll DFA when they're done. The Miami Marlins have DFA'd the same reliever, I believe, now 4 times this season. They DFA him. He reports to Jacksonville, and then 2 weeks later they call him up. They use him in a blowout, and then they DFA him again. And they just keep cycling through options like that. Atlanta's relievers are all too good to do that. You DFA some of these guys, they're going to get claimed.
Oh, they're going to get claimed. Yeah.
So Alex Anthopoulos uses the roster rules and finds a way to reinforce the major league roster. And just shows he's better than all the rest of us.
You mentioned Anderson just a bit ago. The thing is when he's been up before, he's been in right field. He was 0 for 5, not a lot to show for it. He's there for defensive reasons. But now with Rosario, will we see him in right field at all?
I don't think he'll play a lot of outfield. No. When he was signed, he was talking to the media after he was signed, and he said, they told me they wanted me to focus on first base and third base. They wanted him to focus on corner infield. It felt like that was a little bit of a reaction to Zach Short playing third base for a week in place of Austin Riley.
Yeah.
Because the profile of the guy you wanted, the corner infield spots, you can sacrifice some agility and defense to get power production, right? That's not Zach Short's game. He's a speedy, defensively oriented guy with a light bat. So they told Anderson they wanted him to focus on first and third base, but they used him in the outfield because at the time, I don't believe they had Laureano up yet.
Nope.
Duvall was still batting like under 100. They used him in right field a couple times. Then he got hurt. Now that you have Rosario, you have Duvall. I don't necessarily think you'll see Anderson out there a whole lot unless you just run out of bench options after, say, you pinch hit for Eddie Rosario or something late and you need another outfielder. Again, you do have Eli White on the roster still, I believe.
Yep.
And so I mean, at best, he is now your fifth outfielder.
Yeah.
How often do you get to a fifth outfielder in a game? Really, once you have that fourth outfielder in there, you're only going to use that last outfielder if there's an injury. So he'll have that last spot on the bench. I don't think he'll play a lot. He's probably not going to. He might be your primary pinch hit option after you've used whatever catcher's not playing that day. But he's really here to be in a break glass in case of emergency in the corners. If there's a blowout, you can stick him in at first base and give Matt Olson a couple innings off.
Yeah,
I mean that's really what he's here for.
Well, and that was
my to play him a lot. Yeah,
that was my next question. Is I know we're coming up on the break, and so these guys are going to get a little bit of rest. But I mean, could he also be up just in case? I don't know. Atlanta goes on one of those heaters where they're beating somebody by 9, and maybe Austin Riley or Matt Olson needs a break, and so they're like, "Hey, we're throwing you out there for the last 3 innings of the game."
Yeah, I could absolutely see something like that where it's a blowout. Maybe you send somebody to the mound, a position player to pitch. You stick him into one of the corner infield spots. I would say probably give Olson a couple innings off if Olson lets you. I can't remember the last time I think the last time we did that may have been 22
yeah.
in Olsen's first season, where Riley would kick over to first base late in the game. But I could see him being something like that. I could see you taking Eli White and saying, hey, go play center field. We're going to give Jared Kelenic 2 innings off, 3 innings off, because he's running around every day. I really think that's about the most you'll see of Anderson. That last spot on the roster, if you're not pinch hitting for a reliever, which in the NL you don't anymore with the DH, there's just not a lot of use for those guys.
Before I let you go, you got a cool thing coming up. You're going to be jumping on a plane, and we'll be hearing from you next week for sure on some draft issues as well as all-star issues.
Yeah, I am. I'm heading to Dallas, Texas. I'll be, by the time this goes up, I'll probably be on the road to the airport already. I'm going to be there. We have a prospect meetup on Friday night, back from my old life as a prospect analyst. But futures game on Saturday. Goal was obviously to get plenty of video and hopefully some time with Drake Baldwin. I'll be in town for the draft on Monday for day one of the draft. So plenty of coverage coming on BravesToday.com. I'm shifted into draft mode right now about roundup of some of the mock drafts, what Atlanta should do, things like that. And again, we'll recap a lot of that next week. But stay tuned. We're still going to have game coverage and everything like normal on BravesToday.com with this great team that we've built.
Very well said. Safe travels, my friend. And as always, I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.